And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We got Jeffem here.
Yeah, it still stinks in here.
That's true. We won't talk about why. We got Ben Reeves.
It's me.
I'm still here. And then we're joined by the once and future king who abandoned his throne, I think is the framing.
Yes.
This is Timothy Turi returning to the podcast.
That's right. No, I was fired. I'm back now. Sorry. Huge faux pas. Resident Evil 7 was not supposed to be revealed at E3, but I accidentally spilled the beans. I hit go on that trailer during the press conference.
The big green button, you just slammed it, then it started playing.
What spot did you fill? What was supposed to get revealed instead?
Yeah, it was actually just a totally different game. It was like a side scroller starring Eminem's character.
He still got
Okami
it.
too?
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
I don't know.
But Tim, thank you for coming back.
Thank you for the setup, by the way, Ben.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back to be on this podcast. I think fans are going to be excited to hear your lousy voice again. So,
it's so bad, especially after talking so much during the show.
I think you still sound pretty good.
Oh, thanks.
What have you been doing at the show?
So that's like a good question. So this is a totally different kind of E3 than I had at Game Informer. I mean, except for the part where we're recording this podcast in your hotel room, which is a thing we
That's
did.
the same.
And talking about Resident Evil? I think it sounds pretty accurate.
Okay, so actually, not that much has changed. Like the first day, Monday, like the day of the press conferences was essentially just freaking out, waiting for another E3 leak to happen and for it to be Resident Evil 7.
What was it like the day before that when you were hanging out with Andy McNamara and he kept saying, hey, tell me about Resident Evil 7. Hey, what's going on with this?
It's like, oh, sorry, I gotta go. I don't know.
And then you
literally
did
did that.
Yeah, we were about to watch Game of Thrones, but I actually had work to do,
right.
for prepping and stuff
Andy
like
made
that.
You feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I believe.
No, but okay, but the day of, you're just worried. You're just going to see a thread on NeoGAF that's going to say Resident Evil 7, parentheses, Tim, goodbye.
Well, that's the crazy thing is like these games just kind of come, especially when a secret is kept and a thing is a surprise, like what all of Sony's press conference was just awesome surprises.
It's impressive, yeah.
And then you see like, all right, I'd been in Capcom for a little over 3 months at that point, and it wasn't until like my first day where it's just like, okay, this is what's going on with Resident Evil 7 that I learned about it. But like, there's people that knew about this for years, and if I felt as anxious and excited and like, what did they feel really deep down? Like the idea of trying to keep something secret for that long, and then just like, that's one thing. Keeping the secret that long is one thing, especially when an E3 is as leaky as this one was. And then like to also have it out there is this crazy like cathartic release again, and like this must just be a fraction of what people who were working on this longer than me felt. And then for people to respond well to it, like to be excited about it, like that's just like the other part of it, which is like crazy, reaffirming, and cool.
Well, let's
So
not
they
jump
didn't
that
tell
gun.
you anything about Resident Evil before you got hired? Like
Yeah, I didn't-
interviews or anything.
No, I didn't know anything about it. Yeah.
Hang on. Riz, you want to take your mic cord and put it back behind that stand? There we go. Just so you aren't rubbing it. There we go. Let's walk through this. So your first day on the job, is it just a like PowerPoint thing, or do they pull you aside and see, but by the way, you're going to be working a lot on Resident Evil 7. It's called Biohazard, all this.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was both. Like I got to like get caught up on what the future of the series was going to be pretty quickly, and there was a lot of like jumping on with like, hey, this is sort of like the roadmap we have planned for how this game's going to be unveiled and stuff. And like, you know, I went through probably a similar range of emotions as a lot of like fans did, and people were just watching the press conferences, which was like, whoa, I don't know what I was expecting from the next Resident Evil, but this is completely different than that. And then it's like processing that, and then me also getting excited for this thing I hadn't anticipated, but it was a little bit more protracted, I felt like, for me, whereas this is just like, you know, the way that the reveal went down, which is, you know, that was a trailer developed by Capcom Japan, and actually the art director for Resident Evil 7 created that trailer and figured out the pacing for it, and like the idea to like set it up first and then deliver the punch at the very end is like, that's a really good way to be introduced to, I feel like, a new direction for a franchise. Be like, and by the way, it's this. Kind of like how, in some ways, like, this is just me speaking, but like the God of War introduction, which is like, I felt like I was kind of falling for what that game was before I knew that Kratos was going to be in it, even though I had my guesses, you know?
By the way, anybody who's listening to this and being like, Good old Tim, man.
Oh, sure.
Being a publisher hasn't changed him at all, being a one-man publisher. But if you listen closely, everybody, you could hear Tim say, this is just me speaking. When he talked about God of War, that's the difference. That's what it's like to switch sides.
Is it?
Out.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Becoming
I don't know.
corporate
Well,
shell.
I mean, to be clear, like I'm not like
You pig.
I don't have a hammer and nails, and I'm not like making the code of Resident Evil 7 or something like that. Like I'm working really closely with the marketing team, and I do social media stuff and community stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, what's cool about Capcom USA is that like I get to be involved in a lot of different things, which is really exciting. But yeah, like obviously I'm not on the development team in Japan or something.
But I take it you got to play the demo early?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because if you are a fan of the show and you listen back to like the older episodes, when I knew you were leaving, but before you announced it, we were talking about the future of Resident Evil, and I said, give me your best case scenario for 7, and you said, it's scary.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was as simple as that, and I feel like there must be a simple validation now that they seem to be, at least in theory, embracing that direction of like, we want to make this scary again.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a big part of it is, all right, so if people are listening to this were probably familiar with what I liked about Resident Evil when I worked at Game Informer, which was like, pretty much everything. I liked pretty much all of it. Like I liked 6 a lot more than most people, I understand, but like I love that series, my favorite series. Why don't I go work for that publisher? Series. I don't understand. Why wouldn't I just do that? But the thing is that like Capcom listens to fans a lot, and an overwhelming amount of fans were saying like, hey, we would really like to be scared by Resident Evil again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that, 4 is still considered like one of the best games ever made. And then 5, I think a lot of people look back at that and say like, that was an awesome like action co-op game, but like that doesn't have to be scary to be fun. And people wanted the scares back. And so like Capcom Japan listened, and this is like super an answer to that.
What if you had gotten to the office that first day and they'd been like, here it is, Resident Evil 7. And it was just like disaster, like Resident Evil pork and beans or something. And it was a pig.
Well, what would Resident Evil pork and beans entail is actually what I'm curious about.
That's what I'm saying is like, what if you'd gotten to the office and it was just some horrifying in the wrong way because it was not what you wanted.
Would you have quit? I think is what Ben Reeves is getting to.
Would you come back to us, please?
His first thing. I don't even.
I'm out. Yeah.
I feel like in my opinion, like that the developer has a track record that it's just like,
Sure.
well, I have a hard time imagining that that realm of reality that could
But
exist.
what if it was Resident Evil pork and beans, Tim?
Let's spend 10 more minutes on this. I agree.
The DLC is going to be called pork and beans, right?
I can't. We have nothing to announce about DLC at this time.
Right.
I have a genuine question to ask. But seriously though, like, do you prefer pork or beans?
Pork.
Okay, great. So on last week's podcast, I think Reiner was on. We're talking about like, oh, what do you think is going to be announced at the show? And I appreciate you still listening to the podcast. I don't know if you listen to this one in particular, but we're talking about.
I've listened to every episode.
Oh, that's so sweet.
The Game Club was great.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Neil Druckmann from Naughty Dog and Josh, the co-writer, they watched it as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
I saw him on the show floor.
Third time I've heard you say that.
I'm so happy with it. It's so unbelievably nice.
It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
That's really cool.
But anyways,
And they listen to this right now.
I don't know about that. But anyways, we're talking last week about like, are they going to announce Resident Evil 7? Who knows? It's a weird time. I understand companies like to have a single push for marketing and everything like that to keep it all focused. And now you have Umbrella Corps. You have the remake floating around in Resident Evil 2, but you decided to go for this now. Do you have any insight into why Resident Evil 7 now?
I mean, I think it's been, what is it? Was it 2014 that was Revelations? And actually, no, I think it was longer than that. I think it was 2012 that was Resident Evil 6. And then between then and now, we've only had Revelations 2. Which is, a side. So in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, it was Resident Evil Revelations came out in 3DS, and then 6 came out. So it's been 4 years since. It will have been 5 years since a mainline Resident Evil came out by the time it's out, because 7's coming out January 24th next year.
Okay.
And so then Revelations 2 had come out in the interim.
A ton of remakes.
Yeah. There was the remakes, like absolutely. So I feel like, I don't know, I was ready, like as a fan.
Yeah.
And there's been some really awesome like AAA horror games, I feel like recently. Like I really liked Alien Isolation.
Yeah.
I liked Evil Within.
Soma.
Soma was really cool by was it Frictional?
Yeah, oddly enough, like Soma, I don't want to say inspiration or anything, obviously, because there's been development way longer than that, but it's similarities in the fact that it's like first person horror.
Yeah, I mean, there's
like that kind of vibe going for it.
There has been more first person horror games for sure,
Right.
but like I think there's always room for more in the market, especially on the AAA side.
So you talked about how it's been so long since 6 came out. Is it the same team as 6, same director, or what's going on with this?
So
Who's in charge here?
The big boss, executive producer is Jun Takeuchi, who has worked on the entire series, and touched parts of it, and has risen through the ranks at Capcom and been in a leadership position. But he's a name that.
Would you show us on this dummy which parts he touched?
Where is it?
Right there.
Oh, okay. Can you point to it again?
Right
okay, it's right there.
That's
Okay.
right.
Killed that conversation.
Ben, I've also been enjoying you on the podcast as well recently, and this is living up to all my hopes and dreams of this. But Jun Takeuchi, who is a name that I think fans should recognize, like within the series. And then the direct producer is Masachika Kawada, who worked on the Revelations series and also has worked on Resident Evil 5.
What about director? Who's directing this thing?
Koshi Nakanishi, who's also worked on the Revelations series.
And
as
how
well.
long did it take you to memorize those names and say them correctly?
Well, I was a journalist before I was at Capcom, and I did my research and got to know people, and I've met these people personally now at this point. So
okay, can we talk about the decision? And again, I want to stress this is Tim. You are not crazy high up the Capcom food chain, but from your perspective, as a new employee at Capcom, why the demo and this weird release strategy? I mean, from the outsider's perspective, it's like, oh, they're trying to capitalize on PT buzz. I mean, PT must have been on a PowerPoint presentation at some point for a model for how to generate buzz, right?
If that's the case, I didn't see that PowerPoint presentation, but yeah, they're both first-person horror games for sure. But like, the goal here is to create a new Resident Evil game and move that series in that direction. And like, some people, I think, based off the demo, which is super focused on like atmosphere and the vibe and like going for more of like a grounded, like more like photorealistic look compared to the last games. Like there's combat in this game. Like I had the developers on for a live stream for Capcom Unity, like first day of the show, and that was one of the things they offered right away. They're like, we're gonna have combat on this. Like, you're gonna have to fight to survive. Which, I mean, depending on other horror games in the market, like I think not all of them feature that element.
Did they go into detail? Is there gunplay? Is it all melee based?
There is one hint in the demo.
I mean, it's a Resident Evil game. Tim aside, there's gonna be guns in everybody.
You can find an axe. You can find an axe in the demo.
Oh, really?
It's a really cool find, and a lot of people have already like been digging around in there and finding cool stuff, and so you can get in there and kind of see how that feels. Which I don't know if it's exactly representative of like what's going to be in the final game, but I like playing around with that thing. You can hit some mannequins, break some boxes.
Can you say
one thing that Ben did, because I was watching over his shoulder with the other PR person, Stephanie? He went up to a naked mannequin and was like zooming in, and then methodically tried to push it down the stairs and like push it all the way down the stairs, and she was like, wow, I've never seen anyone do that before.
Never seen somebody mutilate a naked body quite like that.
Very polite.
What was weird is like later on in the demo, you're like walking into a room and a mannequin comes like sliding down into right in front of you.
I think it gets thrown down a hallway, right?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, that's weird because this is what I did earlier in the demo.
It's already push them down the stairs.
And so there's time travel involved in Resident Evil 7 then? Is that what we're learning here? Where it's just a loop of him constantly pushing it down?
Technically, kind of, yeah, with the VHS tape mechanic.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So there's like a crazy filter. I've just watched bits and pieces of the test chamber that Kyle and Kim did back home.
Oh, I need to watch that.
But yeah, so there's like a VHS filter, and it's pretty trippy. Did you get any hint from the developers, or do you know, or can you explain like how similar this demo is to the finished product? Is the finished product for sure going to be first person, for sure going to have the grainy filter, all that stuff?
Yeah, and like this is also another cool thing about like being on the side of things with E3, which is like stuff to me that's like so like can be so apparent or something. Like there's just this mystery surrounding certain releases because
you're better than us. We get it.
On a stage show, on a stage presentation, like you only deliver so much information in so much time. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the next like Resident Evil 7 is a first person perspective, and part of the goal there is the team wanted to scare players as much as possible this time around, and their design philosophy is like, well, let's get them closer to like the actual terrible stuff that's happening here, and then you layer on like the VR element, which like super quick detour is I learned that it's the RE engine is like a new engine built like from the ground up to make this game. Also to enable them to develop in VR, but also to create better visuals than they've had in the past. So
yeah.
But to answer your other part of that question, which was
the filter stuff.
The filter stuff, yeah. So yeah, that represents sort of part of the gameplay mechanics of Resident Evil 7, which is that you'll be able to find these VHS tapes, and how it works is, you find a place to play it. In this case, it's a VCR hooked up to an old TV, and you can visit this this chunk of time. In the case of the demo, it is actually the same area, but a previous place in time. You play through that flashback like as a VHS, and you can find hints and context. You get context from different characters, and also hints from the past that inform what you can do for your your modern playthrough, like your present timeline playthrough.
What was the year on that VHS? Do you remember?
That's a good question. I think it might have been like 3 years ahead, but obviously people can just double check at home.
Huh.
Well, hang on. So I also saw, I think it was just like a NeoGAF thread or something, that whoever you're playing in this demo, I think it's still mysterious as far as I can tell. It's not representative of like the storyline or the main character in the main game, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
this is like should be considered a prologue essentially. You're not going to play through this slice of the game like in Resident Evil 7.
It's a ground zeros of sorts.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Interesting. Okay. I don't really care about any of that. How are you doing, Tim? What's going on in San Francisco?
I hang out at the Capcom office a lot, and then when I'm not there, I live in Sunset, so not that far off from like Dan Reichert and Brian Vore.
What's the
and
nearest
stuff like
intersection, though?
that. We're looking at. Wait, hold on a second. I've learned a few things about living in San Francisco. One, it's not nearly as warm consistently as you'd hope it'd be coming from like cold Minnesota winters.
You just expected like, woohoo, diving in the ocean. Let's swim with some dolphins.
I don't know, but at the same time, I always knew that you need a like sweatshirt everywhere you go in San Francisco because it's like when sun goes down, it gets chilly. The Muni, the train I take into work is like the least reliable thing. So like it's actually been a cool practice in patience, which is like in Minnesota, you pretty much need to have a car to get around. Like you can take public transit or be an insane biker during the winter, but otherwise you have good control where and when you want to be anytime. And like when you leave yourself up to public transit that's been around for, we are talking about public transit now of San Francisco on this podcast. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to allow myself to get there when I get there.
Yeah.
It'll be all right.
So you're doing a lot of weed?
It is legal, but no.
Okay, so we got Dan Reichert out there. You're seeing that
red and
weirdo a
green.
lot.
Hey.
Hey.
Heyo.
Hey.
What is going on over there?
Can we start this over?
Absolutely. So we got Dan Reichert, we got Megan Marie, Annette, Phil Kohler,
That's
Brian Vore. There's a bunch of XGI folks out there,
Yeah.
and I want to know, do you guys all get together and just high-five each other and kiss and hug?
Yeah, it's all those things.
God damn.
Annette is working at Sony now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a cool moment where it's just like I got to. She was in a demo room checking out, Resident Evil 7 and PlayStation VR, and like she works on, these. She helps create these partnerships that happen that can enable these awesome announcements to happen, and works with third parties and stuff. And it's just a bizarre, like looking back at like when we first started at GI and like. Jeffem and Dan and Annette and Phil and I were like just signing papers, and it's just like
all together same day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
now Annette's pretty much better than us.
That's correct.
That ties into another conversation. But generally, Tim, like I ran into Annette yesterday and talked to her for a bit, and she was talking about working with you and being on like conference calls with you to line up this Resident Evil 7 reveal. Genuinely tears in my eyes. I thought it was the sweetest thing I've ever heard in my life to think of like you and Annette working to announce Resident Evil 7 in some way. Jeff, it's amazing. It's so sweet.
The sweetest thing you've ever heard in your life.
Well,
it was very
Jeffem,
sweet and touching.
Thank you for at least at long last speaking up to belittle Ben Hansen's feelings on this podcast.
Hey man, I'm keeping it real.
What's the sweetest thing you've ever heard in your life?
Yeah.
Other than your wife saying, "I won't leave you."
Yeah. And I have to hear that every day too.
I cleaned the house for you, sweetie.
Mm-hmm.
But when you coming back to GI, no more BS.
But first of all, like, thank you. Like, it's like I've tried not to take that stuff for granted. It's really easy not to be able to zoom out and stuff like that. And like, I miss all you guys like a lot. But you also can't get rid of me because like here I am, and like I came and harassed you at the offices, and
you're in our tour video.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, hopefully we can
It's like
still.
you never left.
Yeah.
Also, you're writing my Resident Evil 7 preview for the website, so.
We weren't going to talk about that.
Oh wait,
Jesus
is that on the air?
Christ.
Unbelievable.
Genuinely though, and this is you effing work for him, but I want to get a sense of how personally excited you are about the direction of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Please say it could be better. That'd be the best case scenario.
Really?
I don't know. No, I want to get as honest as we can possibly get, because if you were not at Capcom, I feel like you'd be losing your mind. You'd be so excited about this right now.
Well,
and I want to have that perspective without like the tainted of,
well, I mean, that's been part of the cool thing is that, like, I don't know, like I've been a fan of Resident Evil since I was 11 and shouldn't have seen it. And then, like, at that point, like I was looking at that game and it was a 3D game, but not really, but that made it look better because of the way they did backgrounds and stuff. So like every step of the way, like I've just been 100% on board with every turn the series has made. And
I do that second CG movie, but yeah, go ahead.
Was that Degeneration? I am super excited for it, and I know that it's more difficult for that to come across as like complete authenticity now that I'm at Capcom now as compared to like Game Informer, but like I think that people that know me from Game Informer understand like the reasons why I'm excited about this game are the same reasons that I've been excited about the series, even when I was just reporting on it and making lists at
That's actually
Game
true.
Informer.
I was going to grill you on it earlier, and then I realized like you could be playing as an animated piece of dog poop in the new game, and you would still absolutely like you would still be genuinely excited about it.
So you're saying
in
I have
some
no
way.
taste? Okay, that's great.
Even if it were called like Resident Evil Pork and Beans, you'd
No,
still be
you
excited
just
about it.
it's obvious you've always
Like-
been a huge fan and you love the series, and you have been fully on board with that series long
Right.
before you started.
You're
working
blinded by your nostalgia. We all agree.
I think a big part of it for me, it was like it's looping back to what we were talking about, which was like the fact that they're able to create something that I'm getting excited about that I didn't even know that I wanted is like, oh well, there's still magic left in this, and like there's still possibilities here, and they're not like the team in Japan is not like resting on their laurels and trying to just refine ideas that they've done before and try to just tweak it a little bit to appease fans. Like they're just like, no, we're gonna refresh the entire gameplay system and try to scare people again. And then if you layer on top of that the fact that like this game from beginning to end is like playable in PlayStation VR mode, which is like that's the name of it now, is like PlayStation VR mode. That is like the official way that you talk about that, which I thought is just little details like that are fun for me to gather. But another thing I like about it is someone who has been like really excited about VR, the fact that, and really questioning like, okay, I've always been kind of a masochist about horror games, and now my favorite horror franchise, and like I think the biggest horror franchise, 20th anniversary this year, is going to also be like one of the most substantial VR experiences.
That's interesting, yeah.
That's been revealed, and it's coming out early next year. And on top of that, like with the PlayStation VR hardware, and also you can start playing in VR, and then you can switch off of it, and you could take off the headset and keep playing your campaign, and be like, all right, hey, I'm ready to play again, and I want to pop on the headset again, and just continue and use that as you want, like as you're comfortable. If you get too freaked out, because it is really scary in VR, and things that would be frightening and make you jump in in playing it regularly can be really, really startling in VR. Like even like seeing your character's hand go up to open a door or something can be like, oh my gosh, it's right there. But just being able to switch back and forth feels like, for me, like the perfect way to wade into those waters.
What about skeptics out there that are not going to spend S-load of money to buy a PlayStation VR, but I think every developer has talked about there has to be certain concessions for the VR version of a game. Like it needs to run at such a crazy high frame rate that the graphical fidelity has to take a little bit of a bump.
Yeah.
Do you worry that there's going to be a backlash amongst the community of like, oh, they're not going as far as they can because of this VR thing dangling around its neck?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's obviously too early to say like what differences there could be, but like that's a huge priority for the team in Japan, is just like trying to make this game look as good as it can and run as well as it can on VR. And I think what they have there, like the early look at the VR mode for RE7 is like it already looks really good in my opinion. And since they have so much time to keep working on it, like I'm super confident in that team.
Crazy release date. It's coming soon.
It is really soon.
Jesus.
And, like, that's something that, like, just as a fan, like, as someone who loves games, like, the fact that a lot of these announced to release dates are getting shorter and shorter is just...
I think it's nice when it's shorter, yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
Plus, you always hear about it, and you're like, I want to play that right now, and then when you have to wait 3 years to play it, like, it's...
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Death Stranding, everybody.
So have you actually played part of the actual game?
I've played what we've seen today, or this week.
Are there any other things from that stream or anything else that you've learned that you don't think's out there? Any misconceptions you want to clear up?
The streams and stuff, like, essentially all I have to say about that is, like, besides the stuff I mentioned about it here, is, like, I love all of the enthusiasm and theories and ideas that are circulating around it, and it's like, I don't know. And not my wildest dreams could I have imagined that people have been this excited and wanted to unravel mysteries together in the Resident Evil universe. Like, there
was a little bit with that with like Revelations, I feel like, from those early teases. Maybe it was just like being on that cover story where we're trying to piece together.
Yeah, that's
some
true.
things.
But now people are playing it and in that world trying to figure it out. And to me, it reminds me of like what I love about games like Dark Souls or something, or like awesome games like that where it's just people working together in like a super connected like world where it's just, like, what if in 96 people were trying to be like, all right, well, what do I do with this emblem? Like, how do I get the key from that room without this thing closing? And people like working together to try to like solve these weird mysteries in these creepy old abandoned houses. Like, I don't know. I just like the idea that this type of Resident Evil game is coming out in an era where people love mystery and love like trying to like break it apart. And
are you saying there's more secrets in that demo that people haven't found yet?
I'm zipped up.
Oh, brother! Tune in for more of that Resident Evil.
Hey, but also we talked. I should be totally clear. Could you do 2 more Wii U's, please? Okay.
Coming to the Wii U. I did not know.
We talked about PlayStation VR mode a lot, and we talked about PS4 mode a lot, but it's coming out for Xbox One and PC as well.
Is there any talk about Vive?
It is a PlayStation VR exclusive.
So VR exclusive for PlayStation,
right?
Forever.
I know for sure that is like in the same way that it's also I think it's a timed exclusive demo, so other people will be able to get their hands on the demo. But
gotcha.
Like the word right now is that it's a PlayStation VR exclusive.
Do you have any insight into like how it ended up at the Sony PlayStation press conference? Was it all based on the VR? Does Microsoft not interested in helping?
I mean, Sony's like been an awesome partner with all of this, and you know, it's just was the best place to make this reveal.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just interested because it seems like something that Microsoft could have benefited from a few more maybe big announcements like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had Dead Rising 4 on their stage.
I guess you did help them out.
Are you excited? I mean, I didn't personally help them out with that.
Go. More
have you?
You want to talk about Phoenix Wright?
Oh yeah, what about it? Spirit of Justice?
Yeah. Hey, how about that Monster Hunter?
Yeah, have you played Beautiful Joe yet?
I actually did just start. I did start playing Phoenix Wright for the first time. Like,
wow.
I started playing the trilogy like, I don't know. It's like, hey, what's this Spirit of Justice thing? I didn't know that much about it, and I started playing. I'm like through the 3 out of 5 cases in the first one. There's like a remastered trilogy that came out for it. For people that watch Super Replay, there is immediately Phoenix Wright's old buddy is named Butz, B-U-T-Z.
Oh wow!
I didn't know that. Like, well, all right, this is a highway right into my heart. So let's go.
Do you think
it's funny?
I've seen a lot of people talking about it. It'd be a good candidate for a game club. Do you think Phoenix Wright would work?
Going case by case.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
It's funny and like, yeah, there's good characters in there. It's like there's a lot of reading, but it's really clever, and it's like adventure game mixed with like Ben. I feel like you'd like it because your whole goal in that game is to listen to people's testimony and be like, that doesn't sound quite right, and press them on it, and like
just
present
super skeptical socially, which is my general MO.
Exactly. Get to the core of someone and be like, you're lying, and I have this evidence that shows it, and then like they're like super adorable, clever character animations. Like it shows them starting to like break down and like lose it a little bit. Like an eye might start twitching, and then like you get like this full on breakdown mode.
Jump cut to feet from rafters.
Essentially, well, yeah. I don't know if it's gotten that dark. If it goes that place, I'm not sure. Spirit of Justice.
I want to get around to that series.
It's fun.
I hear good things.
It's fun.
Anything else you want to say, you weirdo?
Me?
Yeah.
I miss you guys.
Oh, that's sweet.
I miss you.
What would you like to see from the future of the podcast? Or Game Club, anything like that?
You know what? I really liked the modern Game Club thing,
Yeah.
like more than I thought. Like when we were talking about Game Club ideas and stuff, I really had it in my mind that like classic games was the way to go. Because I think of a lot of book clubs as being focused on classic literature for some reason, and that's maybe a false model. But like, I think that Uncharted 4 was like the perfect type of game, like a modern game to just like dig into. There was a just more modern game
Do you
clubs.
think it's
would be
maybe
cool.
that's a game of exceptional quality, and so I don't know, and like the story presented itself in a way that's like we had a lot to talk about there, and maybe
Yeah,
not
some
every
people
game's gonna
complain.
have.
Some people complain
be.
about like too much story talk and not enough gameplay talk in the game clubs, and I guess we've been a little bit
Well, I mean,
focused on
I
that.
don't
But
think so.
that's just. I mean, Uncharted 4 has a super compelling story, and it's like, why wouldn't you want to just dive into that a lot? I
right,
don't know.
I'm not going to talk about the breakdown of weapons, but there are those people out there that wanted more gameplay talk. So maybe
That's
the next
true.
one we can be more
That's
gameplay focused
interesting.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
We should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome back anytime. You're welcome to just Skype in and you can chime in a sentence or two and then be on your way.
Oh,
Anything you
well,
want,
that'd be
man.
fun. Yeah.
Great. Congratulations, by the way.
thank
Resident Evil
you.
7, man.
Dude,
congrats, you did it.
it's we do it, man. It's awesome. I can't wait.
Do it.
We
That's
do
right.
it.
And I'm really looking forward to the number 2 remake. So
Yeah, me too.
whenever you're ready to start
Yeah, what
talking about that.
perspective is that from, by the way? We didn't ask you.
Well, it's in concept design right now.
Oh, okay.
And actually, there was a developer interview that came out, which is like with Hirabayashi-san, who we met in Japan for the Revelations 2 cover story. And there's some good nuggets. If you go in there, it's posted on Capcom Unity, but you can just like Google 20th anniversary Resident Evil 2 remake developer interview. And there's some good nuggets in there just talking about how like they acknowledge that like just a straight remake isn't quite enough in the same way that the remake of the original needed to do some extra little something to it. Like,
so it's kind of in that vein.
that seems to be what they're hinting.
Huh.
I know about as much about it as you do at this point. So
interesting.
they're still designing the concept. So
All right, but that's it. Thank you so much.
thank you.
And thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll have a new, better sounding, better looking version of the episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody.